Hi, I'm CJ, and welcome to Virtual Infamy Gaming. Today we're going to see if we can figure out how to play the What is the Sorcery TCG. In my last video, I talked about the ambitious and now largely defunct trading card game What is the Sorcery? WITS. Today we're going to see if we have enough rules to play the game. The build-in bottle box I opened in my last video includes a short rulebook, and right now it's one of the only ways to get the rules. Unfortunately, this is more of a quick start guide than a full rulebook. It doesn't cover every mechanic, and in a few places it looks like the text and images weren't fully finalized. We'll take a look at that in a sec. It seems like most of the development effort went into the video game version on the Epic Store. My guess is the team was going all in on that NFC-powered digital experience to make the game stand out among other TCGs. The digital version had tutorials that explained the full rules, but like I mentioned in the first video, and have since confirmed, the servers aren't online anymore. You can still download the client, but you can't get past the title screen. Luckily, a few streamers captured pieces of the tutorial before everything went offline. The Kickstarter page also includes some rule images that aren't in this book, and the WITS Discord has answers to a handful of questions. I'll link all of these in the description. Between these sources, I'm reasonably confident we can puzzle together a playable game, and who knows, maybe the folks on the Discord server could answer some questions that people ask there. So let's go over what we know so far. I'm actually going to start back over here with the factions and alliances of WITS. There are two alliances, Light and Dark. Each alliance has 5 factions. The rulebook doesn't explicitly say whether you're restricted to building decks only from your alliance, but your hero gains experience from cards that match its faction or alliance. We'll look at that closer in a bit, but practically speaking, that means you'll want to stick to at least the alliance your hero leads. This is probably a little more challenging than expected because booster boxes are easier to get than starter boxes, but I nabbed 4 heroes just with a single build-in battle box, so they don't seem to be particularly rare. My box came with 2 light heroes and 2 dark heroes. We've got Balder, the Time leader. We've got Jackal, the Wild leader, and both of those are light. We've got Andonax, the Ice leader. And we've got Pakal, the Normies leader, and both of those are Dark Alliance. Now let's take a look at the rules. So how to play the basics of WITS-TCG. Each player begins with a 40-card deck and a chosen hero. You start with 2 mana and draw a card per turn. Spend mana to play Cantarians, which are your creatures, relics, traps, and spells to control the board, protect your hero, and defeat your opponent. Each turn consists of phases: draw, mana, main, combat, and end. And here's something where you can see that this wasn't completely finalized before it went to print. Image suggestion, infographic of turn structure with icons, which of course isn't here. There are also things that aren't included in the rules, and we'll talk about those a little bit. The next page is about card types. You've got your hero card, which is basically your commander. You don't have to cast this. This is always on the field. You've got your Catenians, which are your creature cards. You've got your relics, which are your kind of equipment artifact cards. You've got traps, which are hidden cards that you play face down. Doesn't say that, but that's the only thing that makes sense here. And you've got your spells, which are instant effects that give you quick advantages. And again, image suggestion, spread of different card types. And we can show you some examples, right? So this art I really like. This is a spell card. These are relic cards. These blue cards here are relic cards. We've got Catenians, which are your creature cards, and they're going to be the color of your faction, and we'll go over what these cards look like in a sec. And you've got your trap cards, right? So this is an example, and you play it face down. One of the things that isn't really called out in the rules is the deck construction rules. Like I mentioned, it makes sense to have cards of your alliance and faction. You can have up to 3 copies of any card on your deck, according to the Discord server. I saw reference to a constructed format and a draft format. The constructed format requires cards of your faction, but the fact that there is draft and the fact that they have rules about XP for these different types of cards implies that there's probably some wiggle room here, and we'll talk about that in a sec. Let's go ahead and take a look at a creature card. Here we have Dare Draco. On the top left here, you have the mana cost. So this costs 5 mana to play. Over here, you have the faction. So this character is from the Fire faction. Over here, you have the attack. This is how much damage it does to another creature in combat. Over here, you have defense, which is how much damage you can take in combat. And like some other games, this defense refreshes every round. You have to kill them in the round that they're played, or else they'll come back. The other item that isn't specifically called out is you'll have several of these cards that say action with a number next to it. That number is the amount of mana it takes to spend that action. So in this particular case, they can do an action 3, which means it costs 3 mana to target a card and deal 3 damage to that card. So that's what that means. So action 1 costs 1 mana, action 3 would cost 3 mana. And getting to what I was talking about a second ago, we have hero cards. This is the special abilities and level progression. There's a little bit of confusion here. It says here that to level up, so heroes start at level 1, right? And I'll go ahead and give an example of a hero card over here. So here's Balder, right? At level 1, they start at the bottom and they start on the far left section in the card description. So level 1, they have no attack. And in this particular, for this particular hero, he gains 2 time tokens each turn. As an action, he can spend 5 time tokens to return any Katerians to their owner's hand. We look at the page, it says that in order to get from level 1 to level 2, you spend 4 cards of your faction, and in order to get from level 2 to level 3, you spend 6 cards of your faction. And technically that is accurate, but really by cards they mean XP. And you'll see down here that when you pay a card from your faction, you get 1 XP, and if you pay a card from your alliance, you get half XP. So you could do, for example, 3 cards from your faction and 2 cards from your alliance, not of your faction, and you'll get up to level 2. So really, instead of playing cards, you should really think about this as XP, 1 XP from your faction, half an XP from your alliance, and then no XP from other cards like traps, relics, or potentially creatures who are not in your faction at all or alliance at all. So let's talk about things not explicitly called out in the rulebook about the different phases. For your draw phase, for example, the player going first does not draw, the player going second does draw. For your mana phase, you start with 2 mana, and your base mana increases by 1 each turn. So you start with 2, on turn 2, you'll have 3 mana, on turn 3, you'll have 4 mana, and so on. Mana refreshes each turn and does not carry over. You can exceed your base mana temporarily through card effects. For example, on turn 3, you'll have 4 base mana. Say you play a War Council card, which gives you plus 4 mana the next turn. When you get to your next turn, on turn 4, you'll have 9 mana. You'll have 5 from the base, and then you'll have 4 additional from the War Council. Assuming you don't play any other cards, when you get to your next turn, turn 5, you'll have 6 base mana. So let's take a look at the main phase. Some of this you can get from the board, and the video games seem to reinforce this. So you can have 3 traps. You see there's 3 trap spaces on the board. You have your hero in the middle of the board here, and you can have up to 6 Catenians. So those are your creatures, and that's the maximum number that you can have in play at one time. Looking at combat, creatures attack 1 at a time. Creatures can attack once per turn, and creatures have summoning sickness. And this one's important, and it's not really spelled out in the rulebook. So on play effects still trigger, but they can't attack or use abilities that turn. The other thing is, for example, on your hero cards, you have each turn effects. That happens at the start or end of your turn. That's not super clear. That is what the actual graphic says on the Kickstarter. So I don't know if it's your choice. It's something that we probably need to figure out. Maybe ask explicitly, or maybe you just decide if it happens at the start or end. So going back to the rulebook, keywords and status effects. This section is genuinely useful and probably where most confusion will happen during gameplay. That said, there's only like a single line for each effect, and some nuances aren't really documented anywhere easily found. For example, I saw on Discord that burn effects do not stack, and that seems like it's a pretty important thing to know if you're playing a burn deck, right? But still, this is going to be a very useful page, and definitely need to bookmark this if you're going to play a game. So, like I said, I really suspect they focused a lot on the digital game. There's definitely some QA and typo issues on some of these cards. It's nothing game breaking, but things that probably would have been cleaned up in the digital version or subsequent printing. And these here, I pretty much picked these at random. I didn't go out explicitly looking for mistakes or typos, but but I have some just in this first handful of cards I grabbed, right? So, for example, over on Elemental Shift, there's just a typo, right? Deal 2 damage to both heroes, and it's apostrophe S instead of just plural. How you doing? Oh, and my cat assistant is back today, so thanks. And Nagi will help me here. And here on Mana Drain, you say steal 1 mana from your opponent's mana pool. An opponent is misspelled. So nothing game breaking, like I said, just something that wasn't caught before it went to printing. So in the end, I think we do have a playable game. Between all the sources we have, we can pretty much puzzle out the rules. Of course, I'm sure questions will come up, as they always do, and it might be hard to get answers sometimes, but we can probably figure things out. So Unagi's come out to help me wrap up here, so if I've misunderstood any of these rules, or if you know more than I do about them, which if you've played at all, you probably do, please feel free to correct me in the comments. I'll be opening more WITS products soon and continuing to piece this game together. I'm closing out with a pirate song, mainly because it's fun and I'm playing Windrose at the moment, so these shanties are kind of stuck in my head. Once again, thanks to BuzzTCG for hooking me up here. Great seller on Whatnot. Highly recommended. Thank you very much for watching. In addition to which, I'll be opening up some of the Soulmaster sets, probably take a look at some other games like Cryptic and Wonders of the First and Neuroscape, and so I'll look at some other indie TCGs in the future as well. Thanks for watching.